the traditional challenges in home building and sales in home building specifically, and how we go about aligning sales and marketing with the other parts of our business. I started out as a lowly customer service manager for Pulte, and blamed the construction team and blamed the sales team mostly for all of the things that were wrong in my everyday life, right? Like the house was painted the wrong color, it must be sales' fault. We built the wrong option, must be construction's fault. And then construction would just blame sales anyway. But we'll start with Jeff, but you've obviously worked with a lot of sales teams. What do you like? What's the root of that problem? Why do we have that problem in the industry that seems so much more complicated than other industries when it comes to communicating between our teams?
Yeah, I think oftentimes what we tend to look at it and say we've got this complex process. Buying land is complex. Developing land, entitling land, infrastructure, building homes. There's so many things here that go on, and then we get into the process of actually building and constructing that home. We got all kinds of new challenges and issues that we deal with, and I think where we run into trouble the most is that we ask ourselves the question. Sometimes it's because we get a little bit too full of ourselves. I've been doing this a long time. I know how to do this, and we fail to fully understand that if this isn't done in a way that is going to be appreciated by our ultimate goal, our ultimate consumer, the customer, the home buying customer, then we're probably going to ask ourselves a lot of questions without getting a lot of input from them. And I think this is fundamentally inaccurate and the wrong way to go about this. I think everything that we do has to be done with a picture of how is this going to be perceived and received by our customers. Sometimes we look at it and go, we're home builders, we know what we're doing, and so we don't query the customer, we don't talk to the customer, we don't get into the head of the customer, and we end up doing things that to us make perfect sense, but we don't get any value return from our customer because we never really took into account what that means to them.
Yeah, Shant, I'm sure you run into that a lot in your day to day. How do you go about aligning that with your team at Esperanza?
Well, first and foremost, I think aligning everyone's goals, right? I mean, and when you talk about misalignment between sales and marketing, it's because our marketing folks sometimes are so focused on lead and traffic goals when really their ultimate goal is to achieve sales, just like our sales team's goals are. So what we've done is we've given our marketing team the same sales goals that we've given our sales teams. So by neighborhood, by division, organizationally, we're all striving to achieve a sales goal. And when addressing obstacles, we don't talk in terms of really a lack of leads or a lack of traffic. We say, is this place hitting its sales goal? Great, perfect. If it's not, then what is the issue in regards to traffic or leads? Because if you're hitting a sales goal, it doesn't really matter how many leads or tours you're behind versus your budget or your goal. Ultimately, you need to hit your sales goal to meet your absorption, to start enough homes, to close enough homes, to achieve all the different org-wide goals that you have, right? So aligning your organization in regards to the relevant sales goals, I think one, that helps the sales and marketing team better align. And two, we've started to focus a lot on, instead of just focusing on how many completions we need, I focus on the inverse of that, is how many completed homes not closed can I have at the end of the year, right? So I set a budget on how many completed homes I can have not closed. So I as a leader of a sales organization, need to focus on one, marketing and selling to the right homes, not just selling homes, right? So just a lot of transparency and communication. And third, to piggyback off what Jeff said, sometimes we in the home building industry communicate in home building lingo. We say things that people and normal people who are outside the industry don't understand. Just making sure that we're communicating in consumer language, and preventing the use of just phrases and terms and words that really customers don't understand. Oftentimes, for example, I'll say the marketing team and sales team will refer to a spec home as a spec home when really it's a home that is a quick move-in home to our customers. So changing the way we speak, I think, helps align us with our customers better.
Yeah, it makes me think of when I first started with Pulte, and we had a bad habit in the field of just referring to, oh, lot 57, even though lot 57, might have been Jeff Shore's house. We would say, oh, lot 57. Well, it took some training and basically, people who were more mature and experienced with us than us to get us into a habit of referring to every house as somebody's house, which I think is so critical. And it makes a difference, and it does end up aligning with what, Jeff, you started out with, which is the ultimate goal is how are we meeting what the customer wants here? Well, they want it to be their home, that's for sure, not a number. So
Yeah.
Jeff, have you seen other strategies similar to what Shant is talking about in your consulting around the country?
Well, certainly as it relates to the topic of overcoming challenges and what builders have to do. I think as much as we sort of hate what we all went through during the COVID pandemic, I think it really forced builders to step into the next century maybe more quickly than they were hoping that they were going to need to. And when you find that your hands are tied, you're restricted in the way that you traditionally do business, then it's a change. It's adapt or die. I mean, survival of the fittest is really what it is. So I think that builders now have gotten a greater taste for the way that technology will help them to move forward, and more are looking at it and saying, we figured out how to sell homes without people being able to look at the homes. We figured out how to sell homes without having a salesperson sitting in a model. We figured out a lot of stuff because we were forced to do that. If we can continue that momentum and move forward, is going to really make for, I think, a much more exciting future for builders, and it's going to allow them to further find ways to differentiate, because ultimately the end result is that the customer experience is going to be that much better.
Yeah, I always think about when times are good, when it's easy, it's really just practice, right? And we're practicing building homes because we're not forced to build them in the most efficient way possible, or we're not forced to really flex our sales and marketing muscles.
Yeah, but that's potentially problematic, because if the practices are bad, then
Exactly.
what do you end up with? So, Shant and I have had this conversation before, where when you look at 2021, early 2022, people just, may I buy your home, please? Do you want to see it? Don't care. You want to know the price? Doesn't matter. Then what happens to things like discovery skills, closing skills, follow-up skills? They all just get set aside. And so you say we're practicing, and I agree with you. But if the market is too robust, we're practicing the wrong things. And ultimately, nobody wins when we do that.
Yeah, Shant, have
Totally
you
agree.
seen a change in the last couple of years since the market was super hot to where now we might say it's not quite as crazy and easy as it was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just if you just look at, and I, frankly, it was so easy. It's hard to put in words how to sell homes for those couple of years of COVID. And really, what we learned from that market is selling the right amount of homes is a lot better than selling a lot of homes, because selling too many homes is just as big a problem as not selling enough. And two, really it comes down to the people who practice, the people who actually, the team members, the sales consultants on our team who actually, trained well, really focused on, on how assertive they were with their closing statements and asking for the sale. Those are the people who you see get sales in the current market in the first 2 weeks of a quarter, whereas most of sales teams are really stepping it up towards the end of the month or the end of the quarter, because now they've got a deadline they're pressing up against, right? You see a lot more urgency in sales presentations when there are deadlines, where you see a lot of those, those COVID behaviors in the early parts of the month or quarter. At least that's what I'm experiencing right now. Is a lot of the bad habits we're still working to fight off.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it's been a bit of a change, and it's an opportunity. When I think about that practice metaphor, it's like there are players, Jeff, you've probably seen this in hockey, and Sean maybe in basketball, but there are lots of players that look great in practice or look great in tryouts. But when it comes down to the game time, are you a Kobe Bryant? Can you actually is that what you really live for and thrive for? And can you handle that higher pressure environment? So
Yeah,
and
I'd say
yeah,
COVID left us with a lot of kind of what you would call in sports a good player, bad team, stat padding guy. Who at those points in times built a reputation based on stats, putting up some big numbers, but when the market shifts, the behaviors didn't with it. Um, and I think over the past couple of years we've refined a bit, but there's still some. I think most builders would say there's still some ways to go in regards to coming back from those habits. I think about today's market, and I think, okay, now we went from the COVID market to kind of what I like to call the incentive market. And how are we going to untrain our team from offering incentives to going back to defending our price? But there's a lot of those things that, I'm just kind of figuring out my 8th year in the industry. You'll have many markets and you'll have many tools in your belt after you've been through all of them.
awesome. I like that, thinking about the transition from the COVID market to the incentive market. Jeff, what in consulting world and everything that you see going around the country, what kind of things are you guys focusing on in the market change, and what are you training salespeople to do differently than they might have been doing in that COVID market?
It's really more than anything else. It's about it's a very simple line of definition here. The majority of sales presentations, not just in our industry, but in most presentations, most industries, are focused on what the customer is moving to. And let me show you the shiny object, how great it is, and how much they're going to love it. And there's a rare minority of salespeople who focus instead on what the customer is coming from and understanding, why am I talking to you in the first place? If everything were perfect in your living situation right now, you wouldn't be here. But our salespeople, um, uh, are they do they care enough? Are they well trained enough? Are they focused enough on understanding that customer's journey, on understanding the mission? It's not unlike, I kind of look like what you do, Connor, at Higharc. We can look at it and say, look at the shiny product. It is so cool. And I can show you all the different features of it. And if the features don't resonate or mean anything by way of solving a problem for your builder, then it's wasted breath. And it's at some point, it's just disrespectful and offensive to a customer. So it's really just that depth of understanding, not what are you looking forward to, but first, what are you coming from?